Good afternoon. Hello. So this is Mary Kay Devine, Director of Community Initiatives at Women Employed. And again, I'm joined with my strategic partner, Carrie Thomas, the Associate Director of the Chicago Jobs Council, as well as my colleague, Chris Warden. It's our pleasure to welcome you to today's meeting of the Pathways to Careers Network. But before we dive into the meat of today's agenda, I'm going to ask Chris to review webinar housekeeping items with you.
Hello. I just want to mention that during the presentation, your phone lines will all be muted. We've got a full agenda today, so we have to ask that you hold your questions until after the presentations. The chat window in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen will be open throughout, and you can type questions into the chat window anytime during the presentation. And you can continue to use the chat feature even after the presentations. But you also have a button at the top left-hand side of your screen where you can raise your hand to ask a question over the phone. You will have the opportunity to share your thoughts today through polling questions, and at the end of the webinar, a survey will pop up on your screen where we will ask you to take 2 minutes to provide feedback that we will then use to plan future webinars. As you heard when you entered, the webinar is being recorded, and we will send you a link to that recording so you can access it after today. And again, you will see in the chat window, if you need technical assistance, you can contact ReadyTalk directly at 1-800-843-9166.
Thank you, Chris. We begin every one of our Pathways to Careers Network webinars in the context of the urgent need to improve adult transitions into college and careers in Illinois. So the first slide you see in front of you today is the reminder that many of these statistics are familiar to you, but worth repeating, that by the year 2020, the projections show that 67% of jobs will require a college degree or certificate. Yet 3 million adults right now today don't have education beyond high school and don't have the appropriate credentials to access those jobs. And recent projections from the governor's office show that out of 100 future jobs, 24 could go unfilled. To address the skills gap, Women Employed and the Chicago Jobs Council launched the Pathways to Careers Network last spring. This is an initiative to increase college and career success for adult learners with low basic skills. The Pathways to Careers Network advances the missions of both of our organizations. For 40 years, Women Employed has been mobilizing people and organizations to expand educational and employment opportunities for America's working women. We frequently say our focus is on women, but our policies benefit everyone. For 30 years, the Chicago Jobs Council has worked with its members to ensure access to employment and career advancement opportunities for people living in poverty. Before we dive into the content of today's chapter from the Illinois Bridge Guide on Contextualized Curriculum, please take a second and respond to our first poll. We always like to check as far as participants on the call and on the webinar. If you think that you're already on our list, just check, I'm already on the list. And if you're new to the network, just check Sign Me Up Today, and we'll make sure that you receive invitations to future webinars, as well as our regularly sent newsletter, Blackboard, that has information on other education and training news, workforce development related items, and specifically links and content to the Pathways to Careers Network. Thanks, everybody. Now, I will turn it over to my colleague, Carrie Thomas from the Chicago Jobs Council.
Thanks, Mary Kay, and good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who are new to the Pathways to Careers Network webinars, today's webinar is the fourth of our webinars that are based on the recently released Creating a Successful Bridge Program, a how-to guide that was put together by the Illinois Community College Board and the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. The guide builds on previous guides and publications, including the 2005 Bridge Guide from Women Employed and the 2010 guide from Instituto del Progreso Latino. This guide updates those with the experiences of the Shifting Gears Initiative in Illinois, and each chapter is designed to focus on a critical component of program development and includes a local Illinois best practice. So the links are shown here on this slide. I'm also happy to announce that since our October webinar, the Pathways to Careers Network webpage has been launched. The website includes a lot of background information that supports our work in expanding strategies to help low-skilled adults access education, credentials, and career path employment. And all the guides that I mentioned are linked here, as well as archives to all the webinars. And so just as a quick reminder, we did a webinar in April around transition services. In September on the first 3 chapters of the guide, building the team, choosing the career cluster, and attracting the right students. And then in October, we did the very popular Leveraging Resources webinar, which is based on Chapter 8 of the guide. So based on your feedback during and after the previous webinars, today's webinar is focusing on Chapter 5, which is all about contextualizing curriculum. The chapter includes a lot of information and examples, and as a way of introduction, I'm going to highlight some things from the chapter, but we're going to save as much time as possible for our 3 presenters from City Colleges, Pui Tak, and Lakeland College. You will have a chance to ask questions today after each presentation and to weigh in on whether you want to learn more about each of the presentations. So the network will be hosting future webinars on this particular topic. But to start us off, I just wanted to note that this quote from the Chapter 5 really says it all about contextualizing curriculum, that it's really a dynamic process that focuses on development, implementation, and continuous improvement. So based on the experience in Illinois, there's a number of important characteristics that ICCB and DCO and the folks that put together the guide really highlighted. So obviously the foundational characteristic that we're teaching basic skills in the context of a specific occupation, whether it's a welding occupation or a healthcare occupation, pharmacy technician, or direct care type of occupation. Contextualized curriculum also incorporates teaching tools that come directly from the workplace. So actual things like maybe a technical manual or using a piece of equipment in the classroom. The guide also highlights some examples of interactive teaching methods like project learning or working in teams. Another key characteristic that is very, very important, and you'll probably hear more about, is really the involvement of many different types of experts on your team to develop curriculum. So in addition to curriculum writers and occupational instructors, this is also an opportunity to engage industry experts and employers who are really going to let you know whether your curriculum is customized and contextualized. And finally, I just wanted to mention that the successful implementation of contextualized curriculum means really understanding the unique needs of adult learners and the role of a teacher working with adult learners. So a lot of this idea of coaching and motivating students is embedded in the curriculum. So when getting to the development activities, the curriculum development team, again, is really very important. And the guide really points out that in addition to the experts around skills, whether they're basic skills or occupational skills, it is important to include career development and transition services experts at this early stage, because those components are critical to a successful bridge program. And as many of you know, those are part of the definition of a bridge program. You'll also need to decide whether you can start with existing curriculum or pieces of existing curriculum that you have, or whether this might be a fresh opportunity to bring a unique team of people together and really revisit curriculum and start anew. The curriculum will also be influenced by the student population that you're really trying to reach. So their skill levels, their experience. You'll want to think about whether your bridge program can include multiple basic skill levels or whether you really have to have a narrow group of skill levels in the classroom. A couple of other things that are important in development is really thinking about program structure and interactive teaching methods. And the guide on page 49 gives some examples of program structure, sort of thinking about single classroom or a series of classes, or thinking about classes that run parallel to each other that have different purposes. And then on page 52 of the guide, there's a useful comparison between traditional and non-traditional instruction, and this can really help you think about interactive teaching methods that may help you in delivering the curriculum that you're working on. So when it comes to implementation, the guide also highlights some design features that have been shown to be very successful. So one is team teaching. And by team teaching, the guide really means having basic skills instructors and occupational instructors together for some portion of the classroom time. Not all the classroom time, but some portion of it. The other thing that has, in the Illinois experience, has been shown to be successful is having a cohort of students that go through all of the program elements together. And this has been shown to help students be successful not just in completing a program and persevering in the whole process, but also really helps them to learn skills and to give them some peer learning and peer support opportunities. The other important thing that the guide really discovered through looking at the Illinois experience is that introducing technology and developing those skills as early as possible is important in almost any bridge program, because virtually every occupation is going to need to, students will really need to have some technological skills. So that is highlighted, but at the same time the guide really talks a little bit about the limitations to using technology and online learning and distance learning as a tool, that might not really be appropriate for success in all aspects of the bridge program, but is one tool that needs to be considered. So finally, continuous improvement is critical to the success of contextualizing curriculum. And on page 56 of the guide, there is a checklist. It's worksheet 5, and it has about a dozen different things, sort of best practices in developing curriculum that you'll want to keep track of, so to see whether you've considered, developed, and implemented all of these aspects of contextualizing curriculum. And two additional important things to be thinking about right from the beginning. One is you'll want to use data about student progress to inform changes that you may need to make along the way. And we're assuming that you've probably engaged employers and industry experts at the beginning, but you don't want to let them go. You want to keep them involved and get a sense of how your program is delivering the skill needs that they need. So now that I've just given some of the highlights of Chapter 5, and that wasn't comprehensive by any means, so I encourage everybody to take a look at them, I'm going to turn it back over to Mary Kay, and she's going to introduce today's presenters.
Thank you, Carrie. Today's first presenter is Ann Darton, the project team lead at the Center for Operational Excellence at the City Colleges of Chicago. We really appreciate Ann taking time today to share with us important curriculum development activities employed by the City Colleges of Chicago to expand their adult education healthcare bridge program. Note that a sample healthcare bridge lesson was attached to the webinar invitation and confirmation. So those files in PDF version were made available to you, and if anyone didn't receive it or has follow-up questions, you can shoot us a message today, or we'll be sure to send those out either through our webpage or our follow-up email. We do appreciate that all the participants will hold questions until Ann is finished, but during Ann's presentation, feel free to submit questions via chat or to raise your hand, and my colleague Chris Warden will unmute your phone line, or will tell you how to unmute your phone line so that you could ask Ann a question directly. Ann, thanks for joining us today.
Mary Kay, thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here. And greetings, everyone. So I'm going to talk about our experience in contextualizing curriculum, but before I do that, I wanted to just very briefly tell you a little bit about our bridge programs to put all of this in context for you. All of us who offer bridges are following the ICCB bridge definition, but I know that we differ a bit in how our programs are designed. So in this first slide, you see that in city colleges, our bridges are intensive programs. Students attend 20 hours or more per week. They include several linked courses that students take as a cohort, And as we'll be discussing, they include contextualized language arts, contextualized math, and also sector knowledge and skills. Our students are in the Bridges for at least 16 weeks, and we do think that once the GED test changes in 2014, that our Bridges may need to increase in time. Many of our Bridges do incorporate a vocational component to prepare students for entry-level employment, as they also prepare for the GED test and transition. And Bridge curriculum at City Colleges exists in 3 levels: high intermediate, low adult secondary education, and high adult secondary education. I wanted to mention that today I'll be focusing mostly on healthcare, since this was our first area of focus for our curriculum development, and I suspect that many of you are either offering healthcare bridge or planning bridges in healthcare. And very quickly, I'm just going to show you a chart so you can see how bridges are scheduled in our programs. Currently, you can see the green and blue parts of this chart representing scheduling for a 16-week healthcare bridge. Each of those blocks represents 8 weeks of study. First, the student comes in at the high intermediate level and will then progress to the low adult secondary education level. So we're talking about coming in at 6.0 to 8.9 TABE, and then followed by the student progressing on, hopefully, to TABE 9.0 and up for the second 8 weeks. As you can see, students are taking contextualized language arts 8 hours a week and contextualized math 6 hours a week. We have options for 3 levels. We haven't used that high adult secondary education level in the red box yet, but we do anticipate using it in the future. Trying to advance the slide, and there we go. High intermediate is lower than low adult secondary education. I see Jen's question. I know it sounds a bit confusing. So we do have bridges that start out exactly the same as what I've just described, with the high intermediate ABE level, adult basic education level, and in the second 8 weeks go on to vocational training in either basic nursing assistant, or that's City College's term for CNA training, or medical office training. So that completers are now prepared for entry-level employment in healthcare, but they may need to follow this vocational component with 8 more weeks of bridge at the adult secondary education level in order to meet all their goals. So now that you've seen what our bridge programs look like, I'd like to talk about some of the considerations we faced in planning how to deliver curriculum effectively in these bridges. And I think this will resonate with many of our listeners. We know that many excellent adult education instructors could deliver great bridge instruction, but they may lack knowledge of contextualizing instruction to an industry. We also know that professional development is wonderful and very important, but what happens after the professional development is over and teachers go back to the classroom? They may need a great deal more support than what we've given them in that one PD instance. And also, program managers need to be confident that bridge instruction is consistent and appropriately helps students achieve their next steps, whether it be the GED test, employment, or transition to occupational programs. So we were very fortunate because through conversations with women employed colleagues, Mary Kay Devine, Chris Warden, and Jenny Whitner, we arrived at the idea that we should create daily lesson plans as a way to strengthen bridge instruction in the classroom using a student-centered, project-based approach. So here you see a timeline that shows you what we've been doing with this project that grew out of our conversations with women employed. We decided to develop daily lesson plans for our bridges, starting with language arts. And math lessons will follow, but we're not with the math lessons quite yet. As you can see here, we actually completed 3 levels of healthcare lesson plans, and both the high intermediate and low ASE levels have already been used successfully in the classroom. We are now in the process of working with our consultant, Stephanie Summers, to develop transportation, distribution, and logistics lesson plans. That's going on now with a completion date for all 3 levels targeted for this summer. And after that, manufacturing lesson plans will follow. After we get done with all the language arts lesson plans, then we'll start on math. We're very lucky to have some funding not only from ourselves and from Women Employed, but also from an ICCB leadership grant. We'll be looking for yet additional sources of funding to continue. And we are also lucky to have technical assistance from the SIPDC. And as each sector is completed, best of all, we're going to be able to make these lesson plans available to all interested programs. So very soon you will all be able to access the healthcare lesson plans if you are interested. This just shows the inputs into the lesson plans. Of course, we started with the framework of the comprehensive statewide healthcare curriculum that was developed under ICCB's auspices, along with the Southern Illinois Professional Development Center and with participation from folks around the state. So our work was not meant to replace this resource, but rather to build on this framework. We also were able to provide our consultant, Stephanie Summers, with the SARE, Central State SARE Healthcare Bridge Curriculum. She used the Illinois Common Core Standards, GED 2014, Compass Test Readiness, because that is the college readiness exam of city colleges, and of course brought in sector knowledge, including interviews with practitioners and career cluster information, all brought to bear to create detailed daily lesson plans, which we hope and know will lead to excellent classroom instruction and, of course, student success, which is what we are all most interested in. And just to speak a little bit more about the Illinois Common Core Standards, GED 2014, and the Compass test, we wanted to make sure that our lesson plans would meet both current and future standards. Things are changing very rapidly. So a crosswalk analysis was done to produce a condensed standards document that will work for NRS, or National Reporting System Standards levels 4 through 6, which would be high intermediate, low adult secondary education, high adult secondary education. This was used for the 3 levels of our healthcare lesson plans, and the good news is we can now use it for other sectors that we develop. I think it's very important to talk about the underlying strategies that our consultant used in writing these healthcare lesson plans. Language arts here is a bit non-traditional because science and social studies are the basis for the contextualization, as you would expect for healthcare. We've connected career exploration to social studies. We're using group presentation activities to improve students' teamwork, problem solving, and public speaking skills, incorporating internet research skills, developing note-taking skills, of course. Very important that these are developmental lessons. Activities build on the previous ones. And classroom activities are matched with content standards so that students really learn to articulate what they are learning and understand that the work they do daily supports their goals. And I've actually seen this in the classroom with students. And finally, I wanted to touch briefly on the underlying philosophy of teaching that the lesson plans are built on. So all work must be grounded in students' experience, decisions, and goals. Classrooms incorporate visual, auditory, and kinesthetic techniques so that students with different learning styles needs are addressed. Activities encourage students with varying skill levels to bring their thoughts and experience to the table as equals. Everyone gets to participate. Students need to work in pairs and groups before they work in whole class activities. And students learn to teach and learn from each other through pair and group work. Writing drafts, first drafts, needs to be free of worry, so students' concerns with penmanship, spelling, and grammar issues need to be postponed until later in the writing process, not initially. And finally, grammar is best learned in the context of a writing project in which students are invested in their communication of something important to them. The outcomes of this approach that we're looking for would be independent learners with good study skills, able to pass the GED, prepared for entry-level employment, and ready to transition to occupational programs. And I think now we have time for some questions, right?
We sure do, Anne. Thank you very much for that thorough presentation, not only introducing folks on the line to the way City Colleges of Chicago has structured your healthcare bridge programming, but the underlying strategies and the thinking that went into your curriculum development. Before we open it up to participants, in addition to saying thank you, I wanted to respond to a few comments and questions that had come up in the chat board during Anne's presentation. Betsy Rubin had asked to clarify which Common Core standards, the Adult Basic Education or the ICCB or Illinois Common Core standards. And Chris is typing, but I will repeat so everyone sees it, that we did use the Illinois Common Core standards for adult education released last year. And another question I think came in from Val Harris asking about the availability of the lesson plans. We're going to work really closely, the Pathways to Careers Network, in partnership with City Colleges of Chicago to release the healthcare lesson plans this spring. We will make sure that everyone on our list is invited, and you can invite others to the conversation. We'll take a deeper dive into the lesson plans. So I would ask folks, on the call today to really think about, if you are in a position where you're developing a healthcare program, you've got some curriculum that you think could use some boosting, some assistance, you've got instructors or other administrators that would really be close to a healthcare bridge, that would be the caliber participant that we would ask to be involved. Folks that could really, I would almost call it a train the trainer, if you will, that the City Colleges team and folks from our team can work with you and talk at a much deeper level on how to use the lesson plans in your local program. But that being said, and still seeing some comments come in, why don't we open it up to questions. Let's start with Guadalupe Martinez, and I can scroll back. I'll read them out loud, Anne, just so you can hear them and see them. City Colleges of Chicago focusing your curriculum based on a monolingual English-speaking population.
That's a great question. We want to have and do have both native speakers and second language learners in our bridge classes. With English language learners, even though they don't normally take the TABE test at this point, we do give them the TABE test, and many of them fall right in this level that we're looking for, the 6.0 to 8.9 on TABE, and they're doing very well in our bridges.
Okay, thank you. I see Beth Dibala, I believe that's the last name. Apologies for mispronunciation. I see that your hand is raised, Beth. If you hit *7, you can unmute your phone line, ask your question to Anne, and then we would just ask that you'd hit *6 to mute your phone line to reduce background noise. So *7 to unmute your line, Beth, if you'd like to ask Anne a question.
No question. I just had a problem with the audio, but we're fine.
Oh, great. Okay. Let's see. Betsy Rubin had a question earlier in the presentation. So this could be for Anne, or if our other co-presenters want to jump in, about JARC, the Jane Addams Resource Corporation, their model on open enrollment, and sort of getting your reaction to open enrollment model in light of the research on cohorts. So I don't know, Anne, if you want to take a stab at that, or Nikki or Ron can also unmute their phone lines by hitting *7 if either of them would want to comment.
I'll just comment quickly that city colleges, at most of our colleges, we're relatively new to bridges this time around, but Daly College has had a very successful medical bridge or healthcare bridge for quite a few years now, and has found that the cohort model works really well for them. So we really looked to that in designing our own bridges with cohorts, and I think that there probably are many advantages to having an open entry model in different ways, but in our particular case, we are very enthusiastic about the cohort model, and especially being a large program such as we are, it works better for us.
Thank you, Anne. I see Guadalupe Martinez, that your hand is raised. If you would like to ask a question, please hit *7 to unmute your phone line, and then hit *6.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can, Guadalupe. Thanks. Welcome today.
Thank you. First, I want to say congratulations. The presentation is really wonderful, and we're excited to be able to see how we're able to share the information that we've been practicing for many, many years. But I guess my question revolves around some support services for the adults in the bridge programs. We know some of the adults that we're working with are also coming in with many social emotional barriers. So are there opportunities where Community College of Chicago will be partnering with some CBOs to help support some of these students?
That's something we've actually given a great deal of thought to, because very often smaller organizations are really better positioned to provide some of the supports. We are trying to build in as many supports as we can with transition specialists, career services, tutors, and incorporating certain information right into the curriculum, but at the same time partnerships are always great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Guadalupe. And just *6 to mute your phone line. I did see a question from Frederick Stanley that had come in earlier. What is the exit criteria that determines students' readiness once they've completed the contextualized training?
In our case, we're looking for a minimum of a 63 on the Compass reading test, for one thing. We are, of course, also looking for progress on the TABE test. We want to make sure the student has progressed to the secondary level so that they can handle occupational studies. And we're learning more and more, as I think a lot of people have, that students' level of motivation, ability to commit, all those soft skills are really equally important with their academic achievements. Sometimes somebody with more grit and determination and maybe slightly lower scores is going to actually do better in their studies than someone who might score higher but isn't at a stage in their life where they're able to make that strong commitment.
Thank you, Anne. So I'm going to close off the Q&A section specific to the City College lesson plans. Anne will still be on the phone line with us until the meeting concludes at 1:15 today. So if you have other questions, jot them down in the chat board. If we're not able to address your question immediately during today's meeting, we will also be sure to either connect you with the presenter offline, or one of us from the network will follow up with you personally. Before I introduce our second presenter from the Pui Tak Center, we want to ask our second poll today and just take a pulse from the participants based on the presentation about city colleges to share your response if you would be interested in participating in a future webinar to learn more about implementing the healthcare lesson plans that City Colleges of Chicago has developed. And so we'll just take a minute get a feel for people's interest, and then we'll introduce Nikki Chan. So if you haven't responded to the poll, we'll close it out in the next few seconds. Just take a minute, yes or no. We make these very easy. It helps us figure out planning for the next webinar, so we really appreciate your participation. First, in your registration responses when you registered for the meeting, second, in the polling questions, and then third, and still important, our participant survey at the end. The feedback from the field has really helped make the network relevant to the field. Thank you. And without surprise, an overwhelming response, clear majority that people on today's conversation are interested in learning more about the City Colleges of Chicago Healthcare Bridge Lesson Plans. So today's second presenter is Nikki Chan, Adult ESL Program Administrator at the Pui Tak Center. We really appreciate Nikki sharing his time with us today to provide a community-based organization perspective on curriculum design. And we're going to talk about the features that contributed to the Pui Tak Center's successful implementation of their healthcare integrated ESL, English as a Second Language, bridge. Please note, the Pui Tak Curriculum Teacher's Guide was attached to the webinar invitation and confirmation emails. Again, offer a friendly reminder, just like Anne's presentation, we ask you to raise your hand or to submit questions in the chat sidebar, or just jot them down on your piece of paper and we'll be ready to call on you as soon as Nikki has concluded his presentation. So Nikki, without further ado, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. And thank you, Mary Kay and Carrie, for making it possible so that I can have the convenience of presenting from my office. And if you don't know, Pui Tak is located in Chinatown, Chicago area. And over 90% of our students, they are new immigrants from China. So today I'm going to share with you about our experience in developing and implementing the contextualized curriculum. So I'll focus more on the process. And so you can look at the slide that I admit that the contextualized curriculum is an important piece, but this is only part. It's just one piece. It's part of the one part of the big picture. And there are many other important aspects you have to take care when you are doing the bridge program. Say, for example, you have to identify the target career pathways, the target student groups, what's going to be your delivery mode, and the assessment and recruitment and intake process, and student retention strategies, of course, the transition services, and anticipated barriers and mitigation strategies and all that. So, okay, the next slide is not coming up. Okay, there you go. So to make it successful, we focus on the contextualized curriculum as one of the major end products, the deliverables, in our development phase. And so, but the other thing, the other end product is the bridge program model. So we created two task force to handle the projects. So it's actually one team. The team consisted of me as the administrator and the overall in charge, and then the program managers like the data manager, the student service manager, and also the coordinators of the contextualized curriculum development team. So it's one team, two task force, and going side by side. And for the development of program model team, I myself and also the managers and the other consultants, and I have the coordinator in charge of that development of contextualized curriculum task force to be present in all of the meetings so that we are all on the same page. I can know what's going on in the task force. And so talking about the curriculum development team, we try to infuse available resource with subject matter experts. We are fortunate that there was an ESL teacher and who's also a medical doctor. And he's taking his time teaching for Pui Tak in our ESL program for 2 years. So he's the subject matter expert we rely on for all this medical terminology and skill areas. And for project coordination, the coordinator, it's one of our former adult ESL program coordinators. So he has all the experience in coordination and in writing curriculum. And he has also the leadership skill to oversee the development of the curriculum writing. And there's another member in the team, in the task force, and he's an experienced retired high school English teacher with ESL certifications. And he has taught for 8 years at Pui Tak. So he knows everything about teaching ESL in the classroom and has good rapport with our students. Okay, in the beginning stage, the task force, they identify there are 9 CNA programs that operate in Chicago. I'm talking about back in 2009 when we first developed our curriculum. And they also contacted all 7 City College of Chicago about the Bridge and Healthcare Vocational Training Program. So I know Truman, I know Wright College, they have successful CNA programs and as well as some forms of bridge programming. So we contacting all, and then we collect most of the helpful materials from them, and they are so generous in helping us out. And they visit, their CNA classes, and they observe their student admission procedures, and we receive some teaching material sample which we can base on. So one thing I would like to say, they quote me in the how-to guide saying we decided to develop a bridge curriculum entirely from scratch to ensure that it will meet the needs of the community, the target population, and instructors. So to say, it's putting new wine in new skin. One, I don't know if a unique aspect in the Pui Tak experience is we try to keep the students in touch, in every step of our development. So we adopt the student-relevant approach, which means even when we are about to pick which career pathway to do our bridge program, I personally went into our intermediate and advanced level ESL classroom to do a survey, asking students which career pathway would they want to walk on if we are offering a bridge class. Then we can have a choice of healthcare or manufacturing or TDL. And the majority of our students at that point, they would prefer Pui Tak to offer a healthcare bridge program. That's why we decided we go for the healthcare. And also about the selection of course level, we gave the tape test to our potential bridge students to test their grade level equivalents, so as to find out what our bridge course should be targeted at and the base level of the course materials. And also after we finish our draft of curriculum, we pilot our sample lessons to the students, see if there are any changes or revisions we want to make. And also we do field testing of our assessments. So now, since we are integrating the health care bridge into our ESL class, and it's a contextualized curriculum, we have to be very clear about defining what are the contextualization goals. We know that in ESL class we have to cover the 4 skills, which are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. But I just want to say the spirit of contextualization is meeting students at where they are and teach them what they will use and in their occupational training and future career. So in here, we put down student listening outcomes, for example, is to develop students' listening ability to understand and comprehend vocational instruction in the following context. If they are enrolled in a CNA class in any of the City College of Chicago we partner with, for example, they should be able to understand the lectures and classroom discussion and the clinical and field instruction, in-service instruction, workplace instruction, and directives. So student speaking outcomes. So focus on how to improve students' oral communicative skills so that they can interact with the following groups in the vocational training classroom, in one of the city college or environment. They can ask questions and talk to the professors and explain themselves and interact with the classmates, and in the future workplace, how they can communicate with the coworkers and administrators, managers, and in clinical situation, how they can interact with their clientele and their families. So regarding the student reading outcomes, we want to increase the students' reading proficiency so that they can comprehend the following print materials, like the entrance test, which they require to pass the compass, as Ann talks about, is now 63, right? And so that they can be admitted to the CNA program at one of the city college. And their course exam, unit test, and finally, the state certification exam. And how they can comprehend and understand the terminology and ideas in academic textbooks. Yesterday, I had a chance to look at one of the textbooks, that's the Mosby's Long-Term Care for Nursing Assistants. It's so filled with jargons and terminologies, which it takes a lot of reading instruction to help the students to go over that, and the field-related articles and job-related instructions, menus, and memos. And finally, we come to this student writing outcomes to help them to achieve the proficiency in the following writing tasks for academic and vocational success, like filling out application forms to college or job application forms, be able to write short reports, charts, and examinations, notes in class notes, short business letters. And actually, I just highlight these 4 outcomes, but in our program model, we have 9 proficiencies to fulfill for the course. And so mainly it's number 1, the listening proficiency I have talked about, and then the conversation proficiency, and number 3 is the reading proficiency, which I have already covered, as well as number 4, the writing proficiency. And also we have number 5, the practical mathematics proficiency. And then the 6 is medical terminology proficiency, and 7 is the test taking proficiency, because they have to succeed in passing the college reading test, which is the compass. So all 7 proficiencies are there in the teacher's guide, which is already uploaded. So I'm sure some of you might have questions, so it's the question and answer in the time now. So.
Well, first, let me start by saying thank you, Nikki. We really appreciate your time and expertise and sharing the experience at Pui Tak. So similar to Ann, we'll have about 5 minutes of question and answer. I see a couple questions coming in the chat window, but likewise, if you'd like to ask a question directly to Nikki, please raise your hand, and then we'll give you the instructions for unmuting your phone line. One question that just came in as far as having access to the slides from the presenters, we'll make sure that everyone has access to the audio recording from today's meeting. That obviously includes the webinar slides, as well as the slides on the Pathways to Careers Network webpage. And we will be sending that link out via our Blackboard newsletter, if not the end of this week, then the very first thing next week. I saw a question from Betsy Rubin for Nikki.
Yes.
How do you address ESL specific needs and science and math needs?
Since our bridge course is ESL integrated, so for the reading proficiency aspect, we also select a reading textbook for our students. And since most of the bridge students, they are already at the high intermediate or advanced level, they don't need much bilingual support at this point. And then I don't know if I answered your questions.
Well, we will see. Either Betsy, you can unmute your phone line by hitting *7 to clarify. So it looks like she just sent a follow-up question.
Oh, yes, I saw that one. So,
how do you integrate math and science?
Okay. When we look at the background, the academic background of our students, most of our bridge students, they actually have a high school diploma from their own country, China. So they do not have any problems in mathematics, at the high school level, but they have barriers in how to say the math terminology in English. And so that's what we are doing actually as part of our course instruction. We have teachers go over how to do math in English, the language skills. That's how we help our students with that math science area.
Thank you, Nikki. Are there any other questions? Okay, Betsy also says thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions if folks want to raise your hand and unmute your phone line, or any other chat questions? While we wait for another question to come in, I just wanted to know, since we are grounding these webinars in the Illinois Bridge Guide, went back and reviewed some of the program profiles in preparation for today's meeting. And so I didn't know, Nikki, some of the implementation features that were profiled in the Bridge Guide were the intentionality of your small group work, your use of field trips. There was something called Ask the Doc. And so I didn't know if you wanted to speak specifically about some of your implementation strategies and how that helped benefit the students' learning.
Okay. During our first year of implementation, we successfully recruited 58 students in our first year. And we gave them an orientation, okay, number one, we want to make sure this is what they want. And also we gave them the pre-test assessment so to make sure they are reading at the level which can be improved to the 8th grade reading level, which is required by the state exam. We found out that it's more doable if the student enters the bridge program with at least a 6.0 reading level. Because in our first year, we also recruited students reading at 4.0, and those they did not have much success in passing the compass test with the City College. That's what we found out. I think 6.0 is the target, okay? So later on, we raised the bar, okay, to try to focus on students reading at least at 6.0. And in our curriculum, there is a section called Ask the Doc. It's basically a dialogue between a doctor and the patient. And say, for example, I can read one of the scenarios to you. we have quite a few of those as a doc dialogue, and say number 66, the student asks, I'm planning to a trip to China next month. Is there anything I can do to prevent getting jet lag? And the doc answer, jet lag hits some people harder than others. Some also feel it affects more traveling in one direction or the other. The key is to have a set schedule, either before you leave or after you get to your destination and so forth. So we try to develop this dialogue so that to raise the students' interest, and it's relevant to their life experience, and also they can learn some simple and basic medical concepts and terminology.
Great, thanks, Nikki. I'm going to take one last question. Sandra Morales, thanks for submitting a question. Do you have the bridge divided into modules, Nikki? And do you have some students who take some modules but don't need others?
No, we are doing bridge as an open entry class at this point. And we are not doing it as a cohort. And because the students, they just, triple in, and then we cannot wait, for a group of students because our students are busy. They have their own lives, and they have to cut back their work hours and sacrifice their family times to attend the bridge class. So we open to our students. So, but our course structure is we want our students to attend from 4 to 8 months. So we do not break down the modules. So we, we try to individualize instruction to our students because we have small class setup. So the teachers is going to tailor the lesson to the needs of individual students if possible.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm going to close the questions so that our final presenter today, Ron Sanderson, has plenty of time. So as we prepared for today's webinar, likewise to the City College poll question, we said to Nikki, there might be some people that participate today who would be interested in taking a much deeper dive and delving into the details on a CBO-specific model or on an ESL-specific model. So we would just like to have you take a minute and a quick yes-no response to the poll on your screen. And this will just help us get a sense of people who would be interested in doing a follow-up conversation. The Pathways to Careers Network could facilitate a conference call with Nikki and a small group of today's participants so that as you take a look at his slides or you listen to the recording, you look at the teacher's guide, and you have something very specific, I encourage you to start jotting down your questions today so you don't lose them, and then we could schedule a conference call in the coming weeks. So if you haven't responded, just a quick yes, no, and this will help us coordinate with Nikki Chan, who has graciously agreed to do a follow-up call with participants who want to take a deeper dive into Pui Tak's model and their integrated ESL Bridge curriculum. All right, I'll be closing the poll. Thanks for all those who responded. Great, and this is exactly why we ask. It's about 50-50. So for everyone who responded yes, we can do a follow-up with you and coordinate our schedules to continue this conversation. I do want to make a note, today's webinar is scheduled to go to 1:15, so I don't want anybody to feel that we have cheated Ron and we're going to give him 30 seconds to present. We extended today's webinar by 15 minutes because we wanted to have time to present the adult education at a college model, the ESL adult education at a CBO model, and then we're concluding today's meeting on contextualized curriculum with Ron Sanderson, the Special Projects Coordinator from Lakeland College, who will give us a perspective of the developmental education department and what is DevEd's perspective on developing bridge programs in a college atmosphere. Ron's going to be discussing Lakeland's commitment to continuously improve their developmental education, automotive technology/mechanic, and John Deere Tech Bridge. Please note, again, Lakeland was also generous enough to share a sample activity from their DevEd Bridge program And again, it was attached to the webinar invitation and confirmation emails. We'll be checking the chat sidebar window to see as questions are coming in. If you want to ask Ron a question directly, you can raise your hand and we'll tell you how to unmute your phone line. But other than that, Ron, I'll pass the microphone over to you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Okay, thank you, Mary Kay, and thank you. Glad to be here this afternoon. I hope everyone's doing well. As Mary Kay said, Lakeland College, we have a John Deere program where students come from throughout the state of Illinois and the parts of the state of Missouri to come to a 2-year Associate in Applied Science degree program in John Deere technology. So these are students who are moving away from their home, coming here for 2 years, and then going back intermittently to do internships back at their home dealerships. Our automotive program also is a 2-year Associate in Applied Science degree program and a certificate program. So students could opt out at the end of year 1 for a certificate or complete the second year. As a community college, we have assessment for full-time students who are coming to the college, and one of the assessments that we assess students on is for their reading skills. Reading skill is what we ended up going through a process of doing the contextualized learning with, and our quest was that we have instructors who indicated that the reading skills of their students was not what they had hoped it for them to be, as probably common with most programs. And our business advisory groups were saying that there's increasing need for improved reading skills because of the technology changes in industry. We were also wanting to get our student engagement in core courses to where there would be more involved in the classes. Those were some of the activities that we were needing to build upon, and I'm going to tell you a little bit how this evolved. We were looking for an approach that would capture student interest. We were looking for an approach that would verbalize for the students how they could verbalize how and where they could use their knowledge and skills. And we wanted to, of course, maximize student attendance in the classes. At the same time, we wanted to create an approach that would create learning communities and a support system for the students as they go through their college courses. And we found that the approach we were going to use was contextualized reading. We were going to take the course of we have a reading skills class that for students who test in the Compass score of 67 to 82, they were required to take a study skills developmental reading course. This was offered as part of their curriculum while they are enrolled in their semester classes. The way that came about was a couple of our instructors, our reading instructor and a department chair, attended a meeting in 2010 with at the Illinois Community College Board. They were talking about DevEd to CTE bridge course opportunities. After hearing the presentation, our reading instructor, which is in another division of the college, really felt that contextualized reading class would help our students in the CTE programs. So we put together a team. If you look at this picture here, the upper right picture is our reading instructor, Judy, and the upper left is one of our John Deere Ag Tech instructors. The lower left, one of our automotive instructors. The center lower picture is another John Deere Tech instructor, and the lower right is an automotive instructor. These instructors got together, had the idea of contextualizing the reading course to fit the material that's being taught in the John Deere Ag Tech and the automotive programs, and make it more meaningful for the students, because one of the things I said before was we needed to get students engaged. Students were not too excited to go into a reading class. Up until that point in time, when we look back over the studies, approximately 70% of the students would pass the study skill reading class. Okay, so that was not a very successful route. But by contextualizing it, we wanted to basically build a bridge from DevEd to CTE success. And one of the ways that we felt that this could be done would be contextualizing the curriculum. Now, we had already in place a reading study skills course that the college was offering to all students, again, who tested in the with the compass scores that indicated 67 to 82 in that range. We're required to take the study skills class. The new course was CTE Reading and Study Skills, RDG 051. This became the new course. It was contextualized by that team that you just saw in the previous slide. The course then was offered, and this was a little bit different since this was part of a bridge pilot project that the college had received funding from the Illinois Community College Board. We used the idea of getting the students that were needing the reading class from automotive and from the John Deere program together, and one of the instructors said, hey, look, these kids are going to start the classes, why don't we start the reading class 4 days prior to the semester starting. The John Deere students are going to be here anyway. They're getting settled into their apartments, their housing facilities, because they were not able to commute back and forth. If they have we do this 4 days prior to the beginning of the semester. This would give the reading instructor the opportunity to spend full days with the students and help them get the reading context behind them, so when they start the semester, they're ready to start in the classroom. As one of the outcomes of this, and this is really important for contextualized learning, we found that learning communities formed automatically. For example, one of the students after the first day of class says, hey, I told one of his friends, hey, I'm not comfortable being here. I'm away from home. I'm already was getting homesick. The kids said, hey, look, tonight let's go out and we'll have lunch or dinner together, and we'll help you get through this. He said, because my mom told me I can't come home till Thanksgiving. So in essence, this was a way of getting a learning community started. You can see the students sitting here. We offered the class in the John Deere and auto mechanics classrooms. The computers that they have in front of them are part of the John Deere online manual system, so this became their textbook. The textbook they were using for learning contextualized reading was actually the manuals that they were going to be using in their programs with either John Deere or automotive. So this became a way to get students engaged, and it actually got the question answered, well, where am I ever going to use this information, answered for us. The project instructor is a key component to the success of the programs, but what we found is that we started with 14 students and we had a 93% completion rate. One student was not able to complete the course prior because of transportation problems. But we had 100% attainment of grades of C or higher. And as I mentioned to you earlier, in the past, in the non-contextualized course, students, we were having a pass rate of 70%. So just the difference of contextualizing a course can really, really make a difference. Here's a picture of some of the students that were standing in front of some of the lab equipment that was in the John Deere Tech building. one of the students made this comment, and I think this really sums up the whole meaning of contextualized learning. Here's what he said. If they made me read that stuff that I don't want to read and I'm not interested in, I would have dropped this class like I did 2 times before. So here's an example of how contextualized reading can get students motivated, keep them engaged into the curriculum, learn concepts that were maybe foreign to them, but taught in an applied way that they could understand. And had this student not been able to take this class in a contextualized way and pass, he probably would have completed the curriculum but never have received a diploma. So with that, we are very pleased with the success that we have had in the continuous improvement of the curriculum. Our instructor goes out and visits with the John Deere dealers, the automotive dealers that hire our students on internships and upon graduation. Also follows up with the instructors on a regular basis to what are the new materials that you're using in your classroom. Since then, we have now expanded this, contextualizing the reading course to other programs that are specific then to CTE. We did use the ABE tests, and they showed, pre and post tests showed gains student gains in a short period of time. We did also a 10-minute interview at the beginning and gave us valuable information. The student ICP helped us get the students focused and helped them with an individual career plan. And we did find that integrating the into the college as a whole can be a challenge, but the instructor becomes a mentor, and that really does help. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ron. I saw a couple questions come in during your presentation. Frederick Stanley commented that he would like to have specific information about the Career and Technical Education Reading Study Skills course. And specifically, Frederick would like to know more about the materials, methods, and student learning outcomes.
Okay, that's a good question. We'd be happy to share with you the course outline, the curriculum, with the learning outcomes, and all of that information. And I can get that to you if you'd like, or individually upon request. Be happy to do that. The other part of the question was?
Well, and I just want to interject, Ron, one of the ways that the network interfaces with folks is we'd be happy to connect that information to multiple participants today. So you and I, Ron, can chat offline and see if you want to link to the web page or share that with some of the participants. And also, when we conclude the Q&A session here in a couple minutes, the final poll today is just like our questions regarding Ann and Nikki. We want to get a very specific reaction from participants on who would like to do a follow-up conference call with Ron. He's also been gracious enough to say that he would do a follow-up conference call with some of today's participants where you could take a much deeper dive into the model. Let's see. I'm just looking through the chat window. And then Frederick had a follow-up question. Based on the results that you listed, Ron, what was the completion or pass rate for the cohort you mentioned in the next sequential course?
I know all of our students who were involved in this this project was started 2 years ago, so all of the students that ended up successfully passing, I don't know the specific grade point average, but we could dig that out, but it was successful, very successful.
A couple other questions. Roxanne Marshburn asks, Ron, can you explain further how the automotive manuals were used as reading manuals? And I'm going to combine that with Jerry Shaver's question. Many technical manuals don't make for interesting reading. So were the John Deere manuals revised or updated for the curriculum? So sort of a two-part, how did you use them, and particularly given the technical density of these corporate manuals, how did you incorporate them and make them interesting in the curriculum?
Okay, that's a good question, and I'll try to take a stab at answering it. The technical manuals, you're right, are very, they're written at about the 16th to the 18th grade level. However, the technical manuals were basically, I guess, used to more or less say this is our textbook, and in here are the activities, and the reading instructor then adapted the application of the reading study skills that she wanted the students to learn into and had them extrapolate it out of the manuals. I know they had some activities. A lot of it was we had one simple activity is here is a case study. Go in and find how you would repair a certain, say for example, an axle on a tractor. There was a specific task that they had to do. They had to go in. They had to be able to manipulate through the document to find the appropriate section, be able to take and read that section, understand it to the point where they could then begin to apply those skills into the repair process. The instructor that did this did a marvelous job. As she said when she started, I really don't know anything about mechanics. I do know a lot about reading. So by applying the reading material, she taught the concepts using it, and then the technical instructors were there to assist the reading instructor if she needed assistance. But it worked as a team, and it worked very well.
Thank you, Ron. Who has a comment? Oh, Nikki Chan has a comment. So Nikki, if you unmute your phone line, jump right on in.
Yes, I did. And I remember there was a question asking about any ESL-specific techniques, in curriculum development. Say, for example, in our Ask the Doc curriculum part, we try to limit difficult word or long word, the number of it. I mean, we try to cut it down to one per paragraph. And we will teach it as a vocabulary. And the other terminology, we try to rewrite it with in simple language.
Thank you, Nikki. And I think Betsy Rubin makes a valid comment in the chat window that when students are already interested in the subject matter, it's not boring. And so the main challenge is taking such high-level reading and technical content and helping low-level readers with it. And she also is interested in seeing more information in a follow-up. Jerry says thank you. And the last question we'll take, because we also want to be respectful of everyone's time this afternoon and finish up with our agenda. Beth, if you want to unmute your phone line.
Yes, hi. I'd like to introduce my president, Ted Daniels. He's the one with the question.
Hi. Quick question on the, well, actually twofold. On the occupations that this program prepares people for John Deere, is there a multitude of occupations that they can get to after this career path, different occupations at Deere? And the other question is how wide of a path, how wide of a footprint is it that you recruit students from?
Okay, good question. At the present time, we recruit, we're partnering with John Deere and the dealerships throughout the state of Illinois, the entire state, and the north and western, or north and eastern half of Missouri are the John Deere dealerships that refer students to Lakeland College. We take in 24 students per year. They go through the curriculum as a cohort group. The job opportunities, these are our students are trained as technicians, and the range of skill sets go all the way from entry level to advanced. John Deere recognized a few years ago that many of their key technicians are at the age of retirement, and they needed a feeder program to get new technicians. So they sponsor students to a certain extent to come into the program, and then every 8 weeks they go back to their home site to do internships.
Last question, a follow-up real quick, is does John Deere make the selection, or does Lakeland College make the selection?
Lakeland makes the selection based on John Deere's and a mutual agreed upon admission criteria.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ted, for the question, and thank you, Ron, for the detailed response. Before we close out today's meeting, our last poll is to get feedback from the participants on who would be interested in doing a follow-up conversation with Ron on the Lakeland DevEd Autotech model. This would give you a chance to delve into greater detail on the DevEd automotive bridge curriculum. So please just take a second. We'll follow up with the folks who respond yes, and we'll coordinate a mutually agreeable time with Ron, and we'll schedule a conference call and make sure, based on people's questions and feedback on accessing course outlines and course curriculum. And Beth or Ted, just in case, I want to make sure just to mute your line again, *6, just so we avoid any background noise. All right. Thanks, everybody, for your response. We're going to close the poll. So we've got about 23 people that are specifically interested in following up, Ron, so we'll talk with you soon. I'm going to pass the microphone back over to my partner, Carrie Thomas, to close out today's meeting.
Great. Thanks, Mary Kay, and thanks to Ron and Nikki and Ann. Those were really great presentations. Just as a reminder, links to the archive webinar will be on the website here. There's also other information that you can get there. There will be a follow-up email to everybody who's been on the call. And then finally, I just want you to, before you sign off, to complete the follow-up survey, because we use the follow-up survey and all of these poll results to plan our future webinars. And I also want to thank Mary Kay, my co-host, and Chris Warden, our webinar expert. So before you sign off, please complete the survey. Thanks, and we hope to be on a webinar again with you soon. Have a great afternoon.